Commander Jinwoo Park stared at the screen in his office. The message had arrived 3 hours ago, but he still could not believe what he was seeing. The transmission came from somewhere beyond the edge of known space. The sender claimed to be from something called the Alterian Coalition. The alien on the screen looked almost human, but not quite. His skin had a blue tint and his eyes were larger than normal. He wore what looked like ceremonial robes in soft colors. When he spoke, his voice was calm and gentle. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said. "My name is Admiral Taman Voss of the Alterian Coalition. We are 7 species who have lived in peace for over 2,000 years. We come to you now because we need help." Jinwoo called Dr. Sunmi Choi into his office. She was Earth's best expert on alien life. She had studied every piece of alien technology that humans had ever found. If anyone could tell him if this message was real, it would be her. Sunmi looked at the data that came with the message. Her face grew serious as she read through the files. "Commander, this is real," she said. "The technology in these files is far beyond anything we could fake. These aliens are telling the truth." The message continued. Admiral Taman Voss explained that his people were under attack. An enemy called the Korthak Empire had been conquering worlds across 3 star systems. The Korthak were insects that walked on 2 legs. They were cruel and violent. They took prisoners from every world they conquered. "We have tried to defend ourselves," Admiral Taman said, "but our ways are peaceful. We do not know how to fight a war like this. We have heard that your species has experience with conflict. We ask for your help in protecting our people." Jinwoo watched the rest of the message. The Admiral showed images of destroyed cities and empty worlds. The Korthak had turned entire planets into work camps. They used the people they captured as slaves to mine resources and build ships. Captain Hyunwoo Lee entered the office just as the message ended. He was one of Earth's best Marine officers. He had fought in the colony wars and the asteroid conflicts. When he saw the images of what the Korthak had done, his face turned hard. "Sir, are we going to help them?" Hyunwoo asked. Jinwoo looked at the files again. The Alterians had sent detailed maps of their territory. They showed the positions of Korthak forces and the locations of prisoner camps. The aliens had also included information about their own military forces. What Jinwoo saw surprised him. The Alterian military was not really a military at all. They called their soldiers peacekeepers. These peacekeepers carried weapons that could only stun enemies, not kill them. Their ships had strong shields for defense, but their weapons were weak. "Dr. Choi, what do you think?" Jinwoo asked. Sunmi was still reading through the alien files. "The Alterians are completely outmatched," she said. "Their enemy has been playing with them. The Korthak could have won this war years ago, but they are taking their time. They seem to enjoy the suffering they cause." The next day, more messages arrived from the Alterian Coalition. This time, the senders were not military leaders. They were ordinary people asking for help. A teacher named Melody of Dawn sent a video of her classroom. Half the desks were empty because the Korthak had taken the children. An engineer called Harmony of Stars showed the ruins of his city. The Korthak had destroyed everything beautiful and left only the factories running. The aliens worked 16 hours a day to build weapons for their enemies. Hyunwoo watched these messages with growing anger. "Commander, these people are suffering while their enemies laugh at them. We have to do something." Jinwoo knew that Hyunwoo was right, but he also knew that helping the Alterians would not be simple. Earth had never fought a war in space against aliens before. The human military was designed to fight other humans on planets and in asteroid fields. Dr. Sunmi had more information about the enemy. "The Korthak Empire controls 12 different species," she said. "They have been expanding for over 50 years. Their military is based on fear and cruelty. They use their prisoners as shields and their own soldiers as expendable resources." The files showed that the Korthak had a simple strategy. They would surround a world with their ships and demand surrender. If the people refused, the Korthak would destroy one city every day until they gave up. Once they had control, they would separate families and send the strongest people to work camps. Jinwoo called a meeting with Earth's military leaders. Fleet Admiral Jaehyun Seo came from the Space Navy. General Woojin Ryu represented the Marines. Colonel Seojin Nam spoke for the Army. They all read the Alterian files and watched the messages. "What exactly are they asking us to do?" General Woojin asked. Admiral Taman's original message was clear about this. The Alterians wanted help with defensive strategies and evacuation procedures. They hoped that Earth could send some military advisors to teach them better ways to protect their people. Want us to help them run away better, Colonel Seojin said. They don't understand that running away is not how you win a war. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun studied the star maps. The Korthak have spread their forces thin, he said. They controlled too much territory with too few ships. If someone hit them hard and fast, their whole empire would collapse. But the Alterians did not want to hit anyone hard and fast. Their culture was based on peace and understanding. They believed that all conflicts could be solved through talking and compromise. They had never killed an enemy soldier in over 2,000 years of war. Jinwoo made his decision. We're going to help them, he said. But we're going to help them the human way. The other officers smiled. They understood what Jinwoo meant. Humans did not just defend. When someone attacked innocent people, humans attacked back. They attacked with everything they had until the enemy could never hurt anyone again. Dr. Sunmi looked worried. Commander, I don't think the Alterians understand what they're asking for. Their idea of military help is very different from ours. Jinwoo nodded. Then it will be a good surprise for everyone. He sent a message back to Admiral Taemin Voss. Earth would send help to the Alterian coalition. A fleet would arrive within 6 months. The message was short and simple, but it would change everything. The Alterians had asked for help. They were about to learn what happened when humans decided to help someone. Ambassador Minji Kim stepped off the transport ship onto Serenity Prime. The Alterian capital world was beautiful. Crystal towers reached toward purple skies and floating gardens drifted between the buildings. Everything was designed to promote peace and calm thinking. General Woojin Ryu walked beside her, looking around with interest. Behind them came Colonel Seojin Nam and Lieutenant Yuna Ko. They were part of Earth's assessment team. Their job was to see what the Alterians needed and figure out how to help them. Admiral Taemin Voss met them at the landing platform. He smiled widely and bowed in the Alterian way. Welcome to our world, he said. We are so grateful that you came to help us. Minji returned the bow. She had studied Alterian customs during the long trip from Earth. We are honored to be here, she said. We want to do everything we can to help your people. Taemin led them through the city. Everywhere they looked, they saw signs of the Alterians' peaceful nature. There were no walls around buildings, no guards at important places, and no weapons anywhere. Even the police carried only communication devices and medical supplies. This is our primary military installation, Taemin said as they stopped in front of a large, open building. Colonel Seojin looked confused. The building had no walls, no gates, and no security. It looked more like a park than a military base. Where are the defenses? He asked. We do not believe in defensive barriers, Taemin explained. They create a mindset of separation and fear. Our military focuses on understanding and peaceful resolution. Inside the building, they met the Alterian military leaders. General Harmony of Peace showed them the command center. It was a circular room with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. The walls displayed star maps and peaceful quotes from Alterian philosophers. This is where we plan our defensive operations, Harmony of Peace said proudly. Lieutenant Yuna Ko stared at the displays. The star maps showed Korthak positions, but there were no tactical overlays, no supply line analysis, and no threat assessments. Where are your battle plans? She asked. We do not make plans for battle, Harmony of Peace replied. We make plans for protection and retreat. When the Korthak attack, we move our people to safety and hope they will eventually grow tired of pursuing us. General Wu Jin tried to hide his shock. How long have you been using this strategy? For over 2,000 years, Harmony of Peace said with pride. We have never killed an enemy soldier. We have maintained our moral purity even in the face of aggression. The humans exchanged looks. They were beginning to understand why the Alterians were losing this war so badly. Taemin took them to see an Alterian training facility. Hundreds of young Alterians sat in meditation circles. They were learning breathing techniques and conflict resolution methods. Their instructors taught them how to disable enemy weapons without harming the soldiers who carried them. These are our finest warriors, Taemin said. They can stop a Korthak soldier without causing permanent damage. They can disable a weapon while sending thoughts of peace to their enemies. Colonel Seojin watched a training exercise. An Alterian warrior faced a practice dummy dressed like a Korthak soldier. The Alterian approached slowly, speaking words of understanding and peace. He carefully removed the dummy's weapon and placed it gently on the ground. What happens if the enemy doesn't want to be peaceful? Seojun asked. The instructor looked confused. All beings want peace in their hearts, he said. Sometimes they just need help remembering this truth. That evening, the humans were shown recordings of recent battles. Lieutenant Unico analyzed the footage with growing disbelief. The Alterians had superior technology in some areas. Their shields were incredibly strong and their ships were fast. But they used these advantages only to run away. In one battle, Alterian ships outnumbered the Korthak 3-1. Instead of fighting, they formed a protective circle around a transport full of refugees and slowly retreated. The Korthak ships followed them for hours, taking shots whenever they felt like it. Why didn't they fight back? Una asked Admiral Taman. Fighting back would have endangered the refugees, Taman replied, and it would have required us to harm other living beings. We cannot do that. General Wu Jin studied more battle recordings. In every fight, the Korthak seemed to be playing games. They could have destroyed the Alterian ships easily, but instead they herded them around like animals. Sometimes they would stop shooting just to let the Alterians think they were escaping. They're toying with you, Wu Jin said quietly. Taman nodded sadly. We know, but what choice do we have? We cannot abandon our principles. The humans' understanding changed completely when Captain Do-hyun Lim arrived with urgent news. He had been monitoring Korthak communications from orbit. A raid was happening right now on a nearby moon. They've hit a refugee camp, Do-hyun reported. 3,000 Alterian families. The Korthak are loading them onto transport ships. On the communications screen, they could see the raid happening. Korthak soldiers moved through the camp like they were collecting livestock. They separated children from parents and elderly from adults. Anyone who resisted was stunned and dragged away. One young Alterian girl broke free from a Korthak soldier and ran toward the camera. It was Melody of Dawn, the teacher who had sent messages to Earth. She looked directly at the screen with tears in her large eyes. Please, she said in broken English, please help my family. They are taking my children to the work camps. I will never see them again. Behind her, a Korthak soldier approached. Instead of stopping him, the Alterian guard stepped aside. They would not use violence even to protect an innocent teacher. The humans watched in horror as Melody of Dawn was dragged away. The Korthak soldier hit her with his weapon and she collapsed. Other soldiers laughed as they loaded her unconscious body onto a transport ship. Captain Do-hyun Lim's hands were shaking with anger. Sir, we have to do something. Admiral Taman looked defeated. What can we do? This happens every day. We try to move the refugees, but the Korthak always find them. We cannot fight them without becoming like them. Lieutenant Unico was studying the tactical situation. You could have stopped this raid easily, she said. You have 12 ships in this system. The Korthak only had 3. But then we would have had to shoot at them, Taman replied. We would have had to hurt living beings. General Wu Jin stood up slowly. His face was hard and cold. Admiral Taman, I think there has been a misunderstanding. What do you mean? Taman asked. When you asked Earth for help, what exactly did you think we would do? Taman looked hopeful. We hoped you could teach us better ways to hide our people. Maybe you could show us how to run faster or shield better. We heard that humans are good at surviving conflicts. The humans looked at each other. They finally understood the problem. The Alterians had no idea what they had asked for. Colonel Seojin spoke carefully. Admiral, when humans decide to help someone, we don't teach them how to run away better. What do? Taman asked. We make sure they never have to run again, Seojin replied. Ambassador Minji Kim sent an encrypted message to Earth that night. The message was short. The Alterians asked for help defending themselves. They have no idea that humans don't just defend. Please advise how to proceed. The response came back 12 hours later. It was even shorter. Proceed as planned. Full military deployment authorized. The Alterians were about to learn what human help really meant. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun Seo stood in the command center on Earth, surrounded by screens showing ship movements across the solar system. What he was seeing had never happened before in human history. Every military ship, every transport, and every support vessel was being prepared for war. The Alterian request for help had triggered something massive. When the human military leaders read the full reports from the assessment team, they made a decision that would change everything. Major Kyungmin Bai, report on the 15th Assault Division, Jae-hyun said. Major Kyungmin stepped forward. Sir, all 10,000 troops are ready for deployment. We've modified their equipment for fighting insectoid enemies. New ammunition types, enhanced armor, and improved communication systems. How long until they're ready to ship out? 2 weeks, sir. The troops are excited. They've seen the footage from the Alterian worlds. Jae-hyun nodded. The footage had the same effect on every human who saw it. The images of families being torn apart and children being dragged to work camps made even the calmest officers angry. But anger alone would not win this war. Dr. Dong-hyuk entered the command center carrying a datapad. He was Earth's top military strategist, and he had been working on the battle plan for weeks. Admiral, I've finished the operational analysis, Dong-hyuk said. The Korthak Empire is weaker than it appears. Jae-hyun studied the data. Explain. They control 12 species across hundreds of worlds, but they rule through fear, not strength. Their military is designed to terrorize civilian populations, not fight real battles. Most of their ships are transports and patrol vessels. Dong-hyuk showed a three-dimensional map of Korthak territory. Red dots marked military installations, while yellow dots showed resource extraction sites and prisoner camps. The key weakness is their supply system, Dong-hyuk continued. They depend on slave labor to maintain their fleet. If we disrupt their work camps, their ships will start breaking down. What's your recommendation? Jae-hyun asked. Total systematic dismantlement. We hit every military target simultaneously. We liberate every prison camp in the same week. We destroy their ability to make war and their ability to control their slaves. Jae-hyun looked at the plan more carefully. It was not just a military operation. It was the complete destruction of an empire. How many ships will we need? Every ship we have, sir, and we'll need to build more. Across the solar system, shipyards that had been building cargo vessels and exploration ships were now building warships. The designs were based on ships that humans used to fight each other, but they were being modified for a new kind of enemy. Captain Heejin Park commanded the stealth ship Silent Thunder. Her job was to gather intelligence on Korthak positions without being detected. She had been studying the enemy for months. The Korthak are predictable, she reported to Admiral Jae-hyun. They follow the same patterns on every world they conquer. First, they destroy anything beautiful or culturally important. Then they separate the population by age and strength. The strong ones go to work camps, the weak ones are used for other purposes. Heejin's reports painted a picture of an empire built on cruelty and waste. The Korthak did not just want to defeat their enemies. They wanted to make them suffer. What about their military capabilities? Jae-hyun asked. Adequate for terrorizing civilians, poor for real combat. Their weapons are designed to cause pain, not to kill efficiently. Their ships are built to look scary, not to fight effectively. They've never faced an enemy that fought back seriously. Meanwhile, on Serenity Prime, Admiral Taemin Voss was growing worried. The humans had been very quiet since their assessment team returned to Earth. They had promised to send help, but no ships had arrived yet. Taemin sent daily messages asking about the promised assistance. The human responses were always the same. Help is coming. Prepare your people for major changes. What the Alterians did not know was that the humans were not just sending help. They were preparing for the largest military operation in human history. Admiral Taeyong-jung was put in command of the Third Fleet. His ships were being loaded with weapons that the Alterians had never seen. Kinetic bombardment systems, electromagnetic pulse generators, and something the humans called pacification ordnance. Sir, what exactly is pacification ordnance? Asked Commander Ji-yeon-no. Weapons designed to end fights quickly and completely, Taeyong replied. The Alterians asked us to help them defend their people. The best way to defend someone is to make sure their enemies can never attack again. The human military had studied Alterian culture carefully. They understood that their new allies could not accept violence even against their enemies, so the humans decided to handle the violence themselves. Dr. Sunmi Choi was working with teams of engineers to develop new technologies. We need weapons that can disable Korthak ships without killing the crew, she explained. The Alterians will not accept our help if we commit genocide. The engineers created electromagnetic weapons that could shut down Korthak technology. They built capture devices that could trap enemy soldiers without harming them. They even designed special containment ships to hold thousands of prisoners. But they also built weapons that could destroy enemy installations completely. If the Korthak refused to surrender, the humans were prepared for that too. Captain Young-ho Shin was monitoring Korthak communications from a listening post in deep space. What he heard was interesting. The Korthak know something is happening, he reported. They're talking about strange ship movements in human space. Some of their scouts have detected our fleet preparations. What's their response? Admiral Jaehyun asked. They're not taking it seriously. They think humans are just sending a few advisors and some defensive equipment. They have no idea what's really coming. The misunderstanding was working in both directions. The Alterians thought they were getting help with evacuation procedures. The Korthak thought they were facing a small human support mission. Neither side understood what humans actually did when they decided to help someone. Colonel Minho Cho was training his ground assault teams for urban combat against insectoid enemies. The soldiers were learning how to fight in the confined spaces of work camps and how to identify different alien species among the prisoners. Remember, Minho told his troops, our job is to liberate prisoners and secure installations. We're not there to punish the Korthak. We're there to end their ability to hurt anyone. But the soldiers had seen the footage from the Alterian worlds. They had watched children being dragged away from their families. When the time came to fight, punishment and liberation might look very similar. Lieutenant Commander Sang-wook Yu was planning special operations missions. His teams would be inserted onto Korthak worlds before the main attack. Their job was to disable communication systems and rescue high-value prisoners. The Korthak used prisoners as human shields. Sang-wook explained to his teams, we need to get the civilians to safety before the shooting starts. Every aspect of the human plan was designed around one principle: total victory. The humans did not plan to drive the Korthak back or negotiate a peace treaty. They planned to destroy the Korthak Empire so completely that it could never threaten anyone again. Admiral Jaehyun sent a final message to Admiral Taemin, Voss on Serenity Prime. Prepare your people for liberation operations. Human forces will arrive in your territory within 72 hours. The war will be over soon. Taemin was confused by the message. Liberation operations? The war would be over soon? He had asked for help with defensive strategies, not for someone to end the war. He sent a reply asking for clarification, but it was too late. The human fleet was already leaving Earth space. Admiral Taeyoung-jung's ships were moving toward the first Korthak target, a mining world called Zerion 7. The Alterians had asked for help. They were about to get more help than they ever imagined possible. Admiral Taeyoung-jung stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the screens that showed Zerion 7 growing larger. The mining world was one of the Korthak Empire's smallest outposts, but it held over 50,000 prisoners from 6 different species. Sir, we're detecting 12 Korthak ships in orbit, reported Commander Jeon-no. Standard patrol configuration. They don't seem to know we're here yet. Taeyoung studied the tactical display. The Korthak ships were spread out around the planet in a loose formation. They were not expecting a fight. Why would they? No one had seriously challenged them in over 50 years. Colonel Minho Cho, are your troops ready? Taeyoung asked over the communication system. Yes, sir. 2,000 Marines standing by for planetary assault. We've identified the prison camp locations and the main administrative centers. Taeyoung looked at the clock. In 30 minutes, the human fleet would decloak and begin the first battle of what would later be called the Liberation War. But the Korthak still had no idea what was coming. On the planet below, Korthak Administrator Zekthul was reviewing production reports. The mining operation was running smoothly. The alien slaves were extracting rare minerals at a steady rate. Everything was normal. Zekthul belonged to the insectoid species that ruled the Korthak Empire. He was 3 meters tall with 4 arms and armor-like skin. His compound eyes could see in multiple directions at once. Like all Korthak, he believed that other species existed only to serve his people. Administrator, his assistant said, we're receiving strange readings from deep space sensors. Zekthul barely looked up from his reports. Probably another Alterian refugee ship. Shoot it down if it comes too close. But it was not an Alterian refugee ship. It was the human Third Fleet decloaking at the edge of the system. All ships, this is Admiral Jung, Taeyoung announced. Operation Freedom Strike is now active. Destroy all military targets, capture all administrative facilities, protect all prisoners. The battle for Zerion 7 began with electronic warfare. Human ships sent out electromagnetic pulses that disabled Korthak communication systems. The enemy ships suddenly could not talk to each other, or to the planet below. Commander Jeon-no targeted the orbital defense platforms first. The Korthak had built large weapon stations around the planet to prevent escapes. These platforms were designed to shoot down small refugee ships, not to fight real warships. Firing kinetic bombardment systems, Jian reported. Metal projectiles moving at incredible speed struck the defense platforms. The Korthak weapons, which had terrorized countless civilian ships, were destroyed in seconds. On his ship, Korthak Captain Vek Shar tried to understand what was happening. His sensors showed 20 human warships where empty space had been moments before. The ships were unlike anything in Korthak databases. All ships attack formation, Vek Shar ordered. But his communication system was dead. None of his ships could hear him. The Korthak vessels tried to fight back, but they were not designed for real combat. Their weapons were meant to intimidate and cause fear, not to penetrate military-grade shields. Their tactics were based on overwhelming weak enemies, not fighting opponents who fought back. Captain Young-Ho Shin monitored Korthak communications from his intelligence ship. What he heard was confusion and growing panic. "They're trying to call for reinforcements," Young-Ho reported. "But our jamming is blocking their signals. They can't even talk to their own command structure." The space battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, all 12 Korthak ships were either destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged. Admiral Taeyong gave the order for planetary assault. "Colonel Minho, you may begin ground operations." Thousands of human marines descended toward Zerion 7 in armored dropships. They had studied the planet's layout for weeks. They knew where every prison camp was located and how many guards protected each facility. Colonel Minho Cho led the assault on the main prisoner compound. His troops moved through the facility like they had trained there for years. They used non-lethal weapons to subdue the Korthak guards and special tools to open the electronic locks on the prison cells. The first prisoners they freed were Altarians who had been captured months ago. The alien civilians could not believe what they were seeing. Soldiers in human armor were opening their cells and offering them food and medical care. "You are safe now," Minho told them in simple Altarian language. "The humans have come to take you home." But many of the prisoners had been held for so long that they could not understand freedom. They cowered in their cells, afraid that this was some new form of torture. Medic Yunbi Song worked with teams of doctors to treat the freed prisoners. What she found made her angry. The Korthak had not just used these people as workers. They had conducted experiments on them, testing how much pain different species could endure. "These people need immediate medical attention," Yunbi reported. "Some of them have been here for years." The human assault teams moved through the compound systematically. They had trained for urban combat, but nothing had prepared them for what they found in the deeper levels of the prison. The Korthak had been separating prisoners by species and age. Children were kept in different areas from adults. Families had been broken apart and scattered across the facility. Some prisoners had not seen their relatives in months. "We need translators for 12 different languages," reported Captain Daeho Min. "Some of these people are from species we've never encountered before." As word of the human attack spread across the planet, other Korthak facilities tried to prepare defenses, but they had no experience fighting an enemy that was actually trying to win. Administrator Zek Thul barricaded himself in his command center and sent desperate messages to the Korthak homeworlds. "We are under attack by unknown forces," he transmitted. "They are using advanced military tactics. Request immediate reinforcement." But the human jamming systems blocked his signals. No one could hear his calls for help. Captain Young-Ho Shin had broken into the Korthak communication networks. He was reading their internal messages and learning about their command structure. "Admiral, the Korthak are completely unprepared for this kind of warfare," Young-Ho reported. "Their messages are full of panic. They keep asking how we found their ship so easily and why their weapons are not working." The most surprising discovery came when human troops reached the administrative centers. The Korthak had detailed records of every prisoner, every work assignment, and every punishment. They had been treating sentient beings like inventory in a warehouse. "Sir, you need to see this," Lieutenant Jiho Park called to Colonel Minho. He was looking at screens full of data about the prisoners. The records showed that the Korthak had been capturing people not just for labor, but for research. They wanted to understand how different species responded to fear and pain. The entire war was partially an experiment for them. "They've been studying their prisoners like laboratory animals," Jiho said with disgust. Colonel Minho looked at the data and made a decision. "Copy all of these files. The other human fleets need to know what they're going to find on other worlds." By the end of the day, Zarian 7 was completely under human control. Every Korthak facility had been captured. Every prisoner had been freed. The planet's mining operations had been shut down and the equipment secured. Admiral Taeyong sent a report back to Earth. Zarian 7 liberated. 53,000 prisoners freed. Enemy resistance minimal. Ready to proceed to next target. But the most important part of the message was what he did not say. The humans had discovered that this war was worse than they had thought. The Korthak were not just conquerors. They were sadists who enjoyed causing suffering. On Serenity Prime, Admiral Taemin Voss received a message from the liberated prisoners on Zarian 7. Many of them were Alterians who had been captured months ago. "Admiral," said one of the freed prisoners, "the humans saved us, but they did not just rescue us. They destroyed the entire Korthak operation. The enemy ships are gone. The guards are captured. The humans made it so the Korthak can never use this place again." Taemin was confused. He had asked for help with evacuation procedures. Instead, the humans had eliminated an entire enemy base. This was not what he had expected at all. Meanwhile, throughout Korthak space, communication networks buzzed with reports of the attack on Zarian 7. The news spread slowly because the humans had damaged so many communication systems. When Korthak High Command finally learned what had happened, they could not believe the reports. A minor outpost had been completely destroyed by an unknown enemy. 12 ships and thousands of troops had simply vanished. "Send scouts to investigate," ordered Supreme Commander Korth Zul. "Find out who these humans are and what they want." But the humans were not interested in talking. They were already moving toward their next target. The war that the Korthak thought they controlled was about to become something completely different. The Alterians had asked for help. The humans had decided to help by ending the war completely. General So-Won Lee stood in the main command center on Earth, watching dozens of screens that showed battles happening across 3 star systems. What had started as a single rescue mission had become the largest military operation in human history. Report from the 7th Fleet, announced Communications Officer Taejin Park. "The Korthak Supply Depot at Gamma Station has been captured. Over 200,000 prisoners liberated." "Report from the 12th Fleet," called another officer. "The shipyard at Korth Prime 7 is under human control. Enemy ship construction has been completely halted." Someone studied the tactical displays. Red dots marking Korthak positions were disappearing one by one as human forces swept through their territory. The enemy empire was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. Captain Yongjae Kim commanded the carrier Indomitable, which was leading the attack on the Korthak's main fleet base. His ship carried 3 squadrons of fighters, each one capable of destroying ships much larger than itself. Squadron leader Ji-hoon An, "Begin your attack run," Yongjae ordered. Ji-hoon led 24 fighters toward the enemy base. The Korthak had built massive defensive platforms around their shipyard, but these weapons were designed to intimidate civilian populations, not to fight military targets. "The enemy guns are too slow," Ji-hoon reported. "They can't track our fighters." Beginning bombing run on the construction facilities. The fighter attack destroyed the Korthak's ability to build new ships. Without reinforcements, their existing fleet would have to fight with whatever they had in service. But the psychological impact was even more important than the physical damage. Throughout Korthak space, military commanders were receiving reports that made no sense. Intelligence officer Hiram Park was monitoring enemy communications from a listening post in deep space. What she heard told the story of an empire in panic. "The Korthak command structure is breaking down," Hiram reported to General So-Won. "Their officers are arguing with each other. Some want to surrender, others want to fight, and many are just trying to escape." The recording she had captured showed the depth of Korthak confusion. Military leaders who had terrorized entire star systems for decades were now afraid to leave their command bunkers. "Listen to this," Hiram said, playing a captured transmission. "This is from a Korthak admiral asking his superiors what to do about the human plague that spreads faster than our ships can move." The Korthak had built their empire on fear and intimidation. When someone finally fought back effectively, their entire system started to collapse. Lieutenant Commander Sang-wook Yu was leading special operations on the prison world of Torment 7. His teams had been inserted before the main attack to rescue prisoners and gather intelligence. "General, we've found something important," Sang-wook reported. The Korthak have been keeping detailed records of every species they've conquered. We now have location data for prison camps we didn't know existed. The intelligence was shocking. The Korthak Empire was holding over 12 million prisoners across hundreds of worlds. Many of these people were from species that the galactic community thought were extinct. Sir, we've found representatives of the melodic builders, Sangwook continued. Everyone thought the Korthak had wiped them out 50 years ago. But they've been keeping them alive in work camps, forcing them to build ships and weapons. General Soan realized that this war was much bigger than anyone had imagined. The humans were not just helping the Alterians. They were liberating an entire galaxy. Captain Hyunsu Moon was commanding ground forces on the industrial world of Production 12. His Marines had expected to find a heavily defended factory complex. Instead, they found something that made them angry. General, the entire planet is one big prison, Hyunsu reported. There are no Korthak civilians here, just guards and prisoners. They've turned this whole world into a slave labor camp. The Marines moved through the factory complexes, freeing workers and shutting down production lines. Many of the prisoners had been working for so long that they did not know how to stop. Some of these people have been building Korthak weapons for over 20 years, reported Sergeant Yu Jung Seo. They're afraid to stop working because they think we'll punish them. The human troops had to convince the freed prisoners that the war was real, that liberation was permanent, and that they would never have to build weapons for their enemies again. Admiral Nayung Kang was tracking the main Korthak battle fleet, which was retreating toward their fortress world of Dominion Prime. The enemy fleet included over 200 ships, the largest concentration of Korthak military power. They're running toward their most heavily defended system. Nayung reported to General Soan. They probably think they can make a stand there. But the Korthak fleet was not retreating to make a stand. They were running in terror. Human naval tactics were unlike anything they had ever faced. The Korthak way of fighting was simple: surround the enemy, demand surrender, and destroy them slowly if they refused. Human naval doctrine was based on a different principle: find the enemy fleet and destroy it as quickly as possible. Sir, we're intercepting more Korthak communications, reported intelligence officer Hiren Park. They're calling human ships death swarms and metal demons that appear from nowhere. The fear was spreading through the Korthak military, faster than the human fleet could advance. Enemy commanders were abandoning their posts and fleeing toward the edge of their territory. Captain Wanshik Jung commanded a destroyer that was pursuing fleeing Korthak ships. His orders were to capture enemy vessels when possible, but many Korthak crews were surrendering without a fight. They're broadcasting surrender signals before we even fire at them, Wanshik reported. I think they've heard what happened to the ships that tried to fight us. The cascade effect was accelerating. Each human victory made the next battle easier because Korthak morale was collapsing. Dr. Yunwoo Kim was working with liberated prisoners to understand the full scope of Korthak operations. What she learned changed everything. General, the Korthak Empire is not really an empire, Yunwoo reported. It's a criminal organization that got too big. They don't have a real government or a real economy. They survive entirely by stealing from the people they conquer. This discovery explained why the Korthak military was collapsing so quickly. They had no logistics system, no industrial base, and no way to replace losses. They depended completely on captured resources and slave labor. When we disrupt their supply lines, their entire military stops functioning, Yunwoo continued. They can't maintain their ships, they can't feed their troops, and they can't communicate with their commanders. General Soan realized that the humans had accidentally discovered the perfect strategy. By liberating prisoners and destroying supply depots, they were cutting off everything that kept the Korthak Empire running. The final phase of the campaign began when Admiral Nayung Kang's fleet reached Dominion Prime. The Korthak had assembled their remaining ships around their most important world, hoping to make one last stand. Sir, enemy fleet detected, reported Captain Subin Han. 237 ships in defensive formation around the planet. Admiral Nayung studied the tactical display. The Korthak had arranged their ships in layers around Dominion Prime. It looked impressive, but it was actually a terrible formation for fighting a mobile enemy. They're trying to protect the planet by surrounding it, Nayung observed. But that means they can't maneuver freely. They're trapped by their own defensive strategy. The battle for Dominion Prime lasted 18 hours. The Korthak fought harder than they had in any previous engagement, but their tactics were still based on intimidation rather than effectiveness. Enemy. Ships are broadcasting surrender signals. Reported communications. Officer Ming-Kyung-Oh. The entire second defensive line is giving up. When the battle ended, the Korthak Empire no longer existed as a military force. Their fleet was destroyed, their supply system was gone, and their prisoner camps were empty. General Sowan received reports from across the combat zone. Human forces had liberated over 400 worlds and freed more than 12 million prisoners. The operation that had started as help for the Alterians had become the liberation of an entire galaxy. "Sir," reported Captain Sungmin Cha, "we're receiving surrender offers from Korthak commanders throughout their former territory. They want to negotiate terms." Sowan looked at the strategic display one more time. Red dots that had marked enemy positions were gone. In their place were blue dots showing liberated worlds and freed populations. "Tell them we don't negotiate with people who enslave children," Sowan replied. "They can surrender unconditionally or they can keep running until we catch them." The Alterians had asked for help with defensive strategies. Instead, the humans had given them total victory and absolute security. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same.